People usually think that learning foreign languages is the difficult and overwhelming process, and in this video I will show you the laziest way to learn foreign languages that I use for years, and that is at the same time the most effective way to acquire languages. So stay tuned. Well, I'm currently fluent in 4 languages and I have a limited knowledge in 3 more languages. And for me, for years, the process of learning foreign languages was always enjoyable and a fun process. And if you ask me how, I would say that this all depends on your approach towards learning and acquisition of foreign languages. Thus, in this video, I share with you the approach that I developed throughout the years towards learning all these languages, and that may be considered as the lazy or passive approach towards language acquisition. Well, there are basically 3 ideas on which my approach is based, and I will go through them in the following minutes. The first idea, because of which I consider this as the lazy approach, is relied on the time that I spent with foreign languages. One of the most common reasons why people develop this negative attitude towards learning foreign languages is because they think they need time to dedicate towards learning foreign languages, and there is always this excuse: I don't have time to dedicate myself towards learning foreign languages. So this is why my approach can be considered as lazy approach, because I don't think that I'm dedicating my time particularly towards acquiring foreign languages, and I will explain you why. For vast majority of language learners, learning foreign languages as a process is something that is considering using some time slots in order to dedicate yourself towards learning the language and doing some drills that will eventually lead to a certain level of proficiency in the target language. On the other hand, the lazy approach would suggest to use the already existing activities and connect them with your target language, and actually do that in the time frames that you already use or some regular activities throughout your day. What this practically means is that I simply connect the activities that I do every day with the process of language acquisition, and in that way I actually don't reserve certain time slots only for learning foreign languages. I'm simply using the activities that I do every day in order to connect them with the process of language acquisition, and in that way to boost my proficiency in the target language. In that way, the first idea of the lazy approach is that you don't really need time for learning a foreign language. You can simply use the already existing activities and the routine that you do every day in order to connect these activities with something that might be useful for language acquisition. Let me give you some concrete examples of the activities that might be connected with foreign languages. For instance, if I'm going for a run, I'm doing a workout, I would most probably take my earphones and listen to the Italian radio in the background while I'm doing the workout. Or for instance, if I'm cleaning my house or preparing a breakfast, I would listen to an audiobook or another radio station in French, for instance. If I'm waiting for transportation or waiting someone in the bar, I would most likely use this time in order to read some interesting literature in French or another language. There are literally dozens of ways and opportunities to use these existing time gaps in order to use them properly and connect them with the language acquisition. Even in the office, you might be able to use earphones or listen to an interesting podcast during your lunch break. So, like I said, you don't really need to reserve a certain time slots only for learning foreign languages, and this is why I consider this a lazy approach because I don't really need time to dedicate myself towards reaching a certain level of proficiency in the languages that I'm learning. The second idea originated from the hypothesis that language learning should be difficult and overwhelming process, and this approach can be considered lazy because it is everything except difficult and overwhelming. So my approach towards learning languages is that the process has to be interesting and fun. And it really is like that because I spent 100% of my time with foreign languages enjoying the content that I read or listen. And the reason why I think language learning shouldn't be painful is twofold. On one hand, people simply learn better while they're having fun, and this is the common thing in the animal world as well. So when we are enjoying the process, we acquire things much better than when we are bored or when we don't like process. So when we play, when we enjoy, when we have fun, we can learn things much better, much easier, much faster, etc. On the other hand, I simply believe that your success in the language learning process depends on the level of satisfaction that you have while spending your time with the foreign language, having fun and maintaining the interesting process of learning foreign language would maintain your level of motivation to keep learning the language. Otherwise, I sincerely believe that it wouldn't be possible to acquire a foreign language if the process of language learning is boring and painful. And if you really want to know about the things that you need to think before you start learning foreign language, you can watch this video above afterwards. And finally, the third and probably the most important idea, and the reason why this approach should be considered as lazy approach, is that most of the time I don't specifically use activities that are dedicated towards learning a foreign language as such. What I mean by this is that I'm not using this old skill building approach in which I would learn foreign language in a way that I am reviewing grammar or trying to use vocabulary lists or trying to improve my pronunciation and doing different sort of drills such as shadowing or repeating the sentences after a native speaker in the target language. So why this can be considered as lazy approach is because there are no activities that can be looked as skill building activities that demand a lot of effort and energy and that might be overwhelming sometimes. Well, what I do most of the time with my target languages is that I use the already existing activities and do them in foreign languages. For instance, if I want to read a book on a specific topic of my interest, I would search for this book in a foreign language. Let it be French or Italian or English, of course. English is not my native language. And my language learning journey really turned upside down when I realized that skill building approach is not the effective and efficient approach towards learning foreign languages. And let me tell you more about that. Well, I used skill building approach for many years, and it happened with my English that I have been learning for 12 years throughout my schooling system. I learned so many grammar rules in English, and if you would give me a grammar test in the population of 10,000 people, I would probably be the one with the best scores because I knew how to use grammar rules, I knew how to put the verb in the right form, in the right tense, and all these things regarding the grammar. But even after 12 years of learning English as a foreign language, I wasn't really able to speak. I could utter some sentences, but I couldn't say that I was fluent in English even after all these years. And the turning point happened in 2015 when I enrolled a master's degree that was held in English, and I started learning the literature that was in English, and it was really a turning point because I started to acquire English language and I was immersed all the time with English. There were foreigners with whom I spoke at that time on a daily basis. There were lectures that were held in English, and I was surrounded by the language 24 hours per day. So I just acquired the language in that way, and I realized that skill building is not the right approach. And in that regard, I asked myself, why is this possible? Why even after 12 years of learning foreign language, I'm not able to speak the language? And I was researching the matter and found out about language acquisition and Dr. Stephen Krashen, who is governing it for years. And after a while, after all this research that I have done, I realized that my case is not the unique one, but it is a common way of getting better in a foreign language in one really pleasant and interesting way, and probably most effective way that currently exists. So my lazy approach is based on doing activities that you do every day only in a foreign language. So if I'm reading newspapers in the morning, I would do that in French. If I'm trying to read and find an interesting book about the topic I want to explore, I would find it, for instance, in English. If I want to listen to the radio and find out what's happening in the world, I would listen to an Italian radio station, for instance. And if you regard language learning process from this point of view, you don't really have to do anything additional that you already do. So you just use the already existing activities that you perform and link them with foreign language that you want to do. Therefore, read an interesting book in a foreign language, watch a YouTube video about things that you're interested in a foreign language, listen to a foreign radio station and find out what's new in the world. And this is, I promise, the most effective and most pleasant way for you to reach a certain level of proficiency in your target language. And let me know if I inspired you to change your opinion on the approach that you're already using for learning foreign languages. And guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and sharing it with your friends, and please consider subscribing to the channel and helping me in this way to spread the word about language acquisition. See you in some of the next videos. Bye!